Live.
2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, and tonight we are continuing our monthly or weekly discussion on our month of October, where we are discussing films that either scared us or bothered us really badly at the time. So, Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about the film that you brought to the table?
Well, this one is a very special film. I felt like we needed something a little bit scary for the month, so I brought in Last Shift, which is a 2014 movie, not to be mistaken for the many different movies titled Last Shift. This one is actually by Anthony DiBlasi's. This is a film about a woman's first shift, which is the last shift for this particular police department. She's on her own, and she's got to sit it out for the night while they close it down and open up the new station. Unfortunately, a rather nasty cult had an involvement with that police station, and things are not quite what they seem.
I do want to mention that Anthony DiBlasi actually got his start in the After Dark Horror Fest in a Clive Barker written movie called Dread. So just so everyone knows that.
And for those of you who have been watching more recent films, the film Malum is actually a remake by the same director, saying that that was what he would have done if he had had more funding at the time. So, other than that, I guess we will get to our first impressions. So, let's see here. Well, I guess we'll start with Jake. Is this the first time you have seen Last Shift?
You know damn well you inflicted on this on me before. But anyway, I saw this, I don't know, what was it, like 3-4 years ago, maybe? Wasn't it like a Halloween watch?
Yeah, we actually put it together around the same.
It would have been before that, because didn't you say you said you paired it with Southbound? I know we watched that longer ago.
Yeah, it came out 2014. We probably watched it not long after that.
Yeah,
so because Kim and I watched it, and then we had to share the love.
Okay, I see how it is. Yeah. And now I will admit, both this one and Southbound intrigued me more than a lot of these films would, but this one, when Brandon said that they remade it to include more gore, my only reaction was, why? Because honestly, to me, I feel like the first time I saw this, I probably had...
Yeah.
What? I didn't get... Well, whatever. I don't know what you said. First time I saw it, I do remember that it did kind of creep me out. I felt like it was a very moody, atmospheric film that did that part of the job very, very well. And I feel like it did that this time. I'll be honest, I was kind of distracted when I first put the movie on. But once I was able to set the distractions aside and just watch it, it did mostly pull me in. It does a really, really good job of creating that sense of looming dread, like the potential threats. You know, it does a really good job creating the atmosphere. And they mess it up by going for all this shocking gore. Now, a lot of it is in flashes. A lot of it is brief. And it's here and there. Like, it's not like over the top until certain parts near the end. But I really, really, really feel like they should have toned it down to make the movie better, not up. Because the movie already does almost everything right. But when it makes me just tune out whole portions of the film, it loses me. You know? So I don't know. I think it's a decent film, but it's like the last two we've watched. Like, there's potential here for the film to be so much more. I remember that was one of the big things I said about Strangeland was like, there was some stuff in there that just totally turned me off to the film and put me out of the film. And as Mo said repeatedly, that one could have been written a little better. It could have been directed a little better. But they did so many things right that it should have been a better film. And I think this is similar. It should have been a better film. And that poster is not going to make me happy. I'm going to be looking at other screens for most of this talk. Just so if there are pauses when you call me, that's why. Because I'll be looking at other screens. But anyway, there you go.
So you're telling me that Malum isn't on your watch list after this?
Hell no.
All right. Well, what about you, Dave? Oh, and by the way, before we get started, spoiler warning for those who have not seen this. If you don't want your story to be spoiled, I would suggest you come back after you've seen it. It's actually free on YouTube, I just found out. So it's actually pretty easy to watch. And back to you, Dave. Was this your first time with Last Shift?
No, it is not. I ended up picking this up from, I believe, Walmart around the time because I don't think that it had a theatrical run. It was a straight to video thing that was at Walmart, and I picked it up. And at the time that I saw it, I thought it was a little shocking, but after watching it again, it's like whatever I watched the first time doesn't faze me this time. So yes, I do get the sense of dread. And I actually noticed this time around that one of the slightly gory moments of like a face actually looked more fake than I thought at the time. But there is an interesting video transition that I like in this film, where where there's this moment where she's standing in the middle of a room that has 4 screens going on, and it seems like her video is pinwheeling with some other video, and you hear all that stuff. That stuff was some pretty interesting video work, because it seemed like everything was like pinwheeling around each other. I think if I remember the first time watching this, the part where she's smashing her face into the fucking table, bothering me the first time, but this time I expected it. So other than that, you know, it was pretty mediocre gore compared to some movies I've seen. So
all right. Well, I actually picked this because I am not as desensitized as you, Dave, but I am much more desensitized than most when it comes to actual scares. It's not that hard to maybe disgust or disturb me still, but it does take a lot to scare me. Those are two kind of different things in my mind. Like, most of my issues with it, with seeing something like that is, that's kind of sickening. Much like, say, Sallow, best example of that, where I had a hard time watching the film because it disgusted me. Nothing in it scared me, but definitely disgusted me and disturbed me. This film actually did scare me when I originally watched it in 2014. Now, me and my wife were watching it for the first time. We tried to sometimes we get in the bed and we decide to put on some scary stuff. And we did a double feature. We did Last Shift, and then we followed it up with Southbound, which I'll have to bring up on this channel eventually because it's a great film. Not as scary, but definitely a great film.
Anthology, correct?
Yeah. And actually, there's one part of the anthology that I do believe Jacob would have a hard time with, but not as hard as, say, some of the stuff we've already watched.
Probably not. Well, I mean, again, I've seen Southbound, and I don't remember it being as bad as some of the stuff we've seen.
It's the part that I'm thinking of is the part where they take the guy to the ER, and he starts having to perform surgery on the guy and stuff like that.
Lovely.
But this one we watched in the dark at our old townhouse. I know Jacob knows about the old townhouse. You lived there for a little bit. But just flat out in the dark. We had our blackout
Never heard
curtains
of
drawn. And we watched this film, and the atmosphere of this film is super creepy. Even though it didn't scare me as much this time around as it did the first time, it still held my interest much more than a lot of films of similar type, because it is one of those where you have a slightly slow burn, where you start small with little things and you build. But the way that they tackled it this time was much better than something like a Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch, where you're actually kind of nodding off until you get to like 2/3 of the way into the film. This one had kept me in that tense feeling the whole time, feeling that you're this isolated, haunted station. To the point where after it was over, Kim had to go to the bathroom. She's like, I'm not going out there alone. And we had to kind of tag team on each other for right before we went back to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that hasn't happened in many years, and it hasn't happened since. So, and I've watched a lot of horror movies. Nowhere near as much as some of the people here, but I've watched quite a few, and this is the only one that's actually got me feeling like that in probably 20 years. So that is my first impression.
Okay.
So let's get into the film. So, of course, we start out with just our kind of just a little bit of story there, where our main police officer, she's talking with her mother, and
it sounds like she's trying to get her to talk about a situation, which I think it's alluding to the situation throughout the whole entire movie, right?
Yeah. But essentially, she's worried about her being a police officer, and saying it's dangerous, and then she's like, come on, Mom, it's not that dangerous. Very few cops actually have to see action in their entire time on the force, so it's not likely I'm going to find any tonight. Little does she realize, which is very different from the remake, because the remake, the main character actually comes looking for trouble. But so she goes into this police station, and she's looking around, and she hears a big noise and sees it's her sergeant, and he seems to be like really aggravated at something.
You know what? First, when I first saw the sergeant, I thought that he was like in like some scrubs or something like that, because it didn't look like he was in any kind of uniform. But when it came up close, then I realized it's almost like he materialized into something else.
So one of the first things he does is says, turn around. And she starts walking away. He's like, I didn't tell you to walk away. I said, turn around. And that's very important. I didn't catch it until this time, but I'm realizing now why he said that. And we'll
So
talk
you can
about
look at her ass.
But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But definitely he seems a bit unnerved and ready to get the heck out of there. But he talks about like how we've got a shiny new station, but we gotta, run this one for the night just in case any stragglers come by looking for the old station. You can answer the phone, but it's likely not going to ring because all the phone calls are wired to the new station. Should be a very dull night, and you need to be able to let the cleaners in the morning so they can take all this contraband off, which is, she says, the room basically of that. He does make a joke, which I find funny, is like, it's like, all of this is contraband, and every criminal in this city is going to be descending on the station tonight, and only you can stop them. And then it's like, I'm just joking. This is just a bunch of like soiled clothes and dirty needles and stuff. But what's funny is in Malum, it actually is true that all the denizens and criminals are trying to descend upon the station.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's almost a different movie, but it's kind of the same. You can tell if you watch these back to back that definitely is what they were going for. But what do y'all think of the sergeant? Oh, and our leading lady, for that matter.
Well, the sergeant is kind of a dick, but most sergeants tend to be kind of a little dickish at times. I don't think police are actually that well put into like, let's just say the police have a history of being sexist, and I think that kind of rubs off a little bit. At least in this sergeant, a little bit.
All right. Let's see. Do you have anything about the main character or the sergeant, Jacob?
Well, the main character, her herself, she's kind of a green thumb. You can tell she's a rookie, so she's going to do everything by the book. But she does a bunch of stupid shit throughout the movie, like leave doors unlocked and walk outside aside, and like I would probably just make sure that I stayed nearby the phone, not walk and open up doors and have conversations with street hookers or anything like that,
Well, not only by the book, she carries the book around with her.
Yeah, it was her reading material for the night.
Right.
So what about you, Jake? What are your thoughts on her?
Well, and actually, to calm herself down, she recites, like, I guess it's the oath that they take or what have you. I think that the main character, that she is Officer Lauren, I think she is. She does do some dumb shit. A lot of it she does the more rattled she gets. Like at first she's not being quite as reckless. But yeah, there was one point late in the film, middle film, somewhere around there, where she just plainly came inside and left the door open, like not open, but like, you know what I mean? Like unlocked. And it was, I was like, really? Why? You know, conversing with someone outside the building is not the worst thing in the world, but you feel like it's definitely something that I personally, though, I thought she was a good protagonist. I think she did a good job. As far as her not commanding officer necessarily, but her senior officer who's there at the beginning, Cohen. He was a dick. Somewhat amusingly so. But honestly, though, later on when she calls and he just basically just tells her, look, you can't make it through a single night. Well, do you want me to hand in your resignation for you? You know, it's like any other station, I think he'd have a point. But given that the dispatcher straight told her that the things that the hooker told her were true, that the reason they had a new building is because of all the weird shit that's been going on. I feel like that was an overly dickish, dismissive move on his part. Now, he did ultimately show up just a little too late, but...
Well, it was the end of her shift.
Yeah. Well, was it?
Yep, 4:00 in the morning. That was when her shift was.
Okay, I know that's when the hazmat people were supposed to arrive, but I had forgotten when her shift was actually over. Yep. Okay, so he showed up on time. Okay.
And she did technically finish out her shift.
She did technically, yes.
Well, Kroll, did you watch the movie?
Hey, Kroll.
You here? I don't know. We can't hear you if you're speaking.
Well, he had it off of mute, but it doesn't. Oh, he'll be back. But with that being said, yeah, I think that it was interesting for the character. And of course, as soon as she leaves, there is a call that she gets. And this call is from this woman. And we get to see repeated calls from this, and she seems to be in trouble. But somehow, she's dialing the direct line to the police station and not 911, as they later find out. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes. So, is this your first time seeing the film, Kroll?
Yeah, it's my first time seeing the film.
Well,
I had never heard of it before this. It's messed up.
not as messed up as the remake.
Okay then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. You know, I didn't even look on IMDb or anywhere to see what the film was about. So, I was just kind of watching it, waiting to see what was going to happen, and then I was like, all right. I figured it was. I figured out earlier it's probably some kind of supernatural type film, but definitely has a little bit of a twist at the end of there. So yeah, it was good. Definitely some freaky moments in the movie, and yeah, I looked afterwards and it said that the movie was brutal and other things, and I can see that.
Definitely a little bit of brutality in that film.
Well, it's just the way. I mean, I'd argue that the end was pretty brutal, because of what happened. You know, I think I figured out. You know, it wasn't a supernatural film, but seemed like it, because of what happened. I don't want to, spoil it yet, but yeah. So I thought it was a good film though, and definitely the first time watching it. So I'm glad I watched it.
And Foundflix did an ending explained video on this as well, which is pretty cool. I was glad to see that. But this one, of course, I also forgot to say that the sergeant did tell her, these are the holding cells back here. There's no reason for you to go back here.
Yeah.
And he knew what was going on. And he just basically was like, you don't want to go back here, which we find out, yeah, she doesn't want to go back there. But we were on the phone call that she received, that first one, that desperate cry for help. And then finding out that this person must be calling the station direct because the 911 calls are all wired directly to the police. But she doesn't get the girl's last name the first time around.
Yeah.
So this was the first time that you really start to get an idea that there might be something wrong going on, but not entirely. It's weird that somebody just dial into a police station directly, but still. What do y'all think of that setup?
Well, that's about the time when, several things begin to happen. It's the phone call.
Yeah,
the
then all
bum
the stuff
from the
starts
street,
really going, yeah.
the bum from the street, the shoes that she finds on the shelf that she puts out, and then she has to handcuff the dude and get all rough with him and lock him up, all that jazz. And so on and so forth. And he just, the first time that I saw this, he did kind of creep me out. Like, he didn't say anything, at least not up until when he was actually calling out for help,
Well, he did pee on the floor of the police station when he first got
And he did shit all over the bathrooms.
Supposedly.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how he would have done that amount of damage on his own in such a short amount of time. I always thought it was just the police that's just how they treated the bathroom.
And that wasn't brown poo. That was like green poo, like all over it. Ugh.
But yeah, she basically goes outside because she starts, after she gets the call, that's when she starts hearing strange noises, just little things here, dragging her down the hallway, looking at things, and she goes outside to investigate. And then when she goes back in, it doesn't even look like she had any time that she wasn't blocking the door, and just somehow the homeless guy just appears behind her, and of course she ushers him out the door after he pees on the floor, and she has to clean that up. But do either of y'all have anything to say about our homeless dude?
Not much. He's an early opportunity for her to think something's not right, but it's a little more down to earth than what comes later. But yeah.
And again, most of the stuff that happens is within reason for the most part, just little things. She goes to the locker room and she finds a little picture because her father had worked on out of that police station, and she finds her father's locker, and there's a picture of him with her as a little girl, which also comes back a little bit later. And one of the things that she also notices is, of course, later on, of course, he messes up the bathroom, though I'm not sure whether that was before or after she runs into him again. But she's definitely kind of startled, but she's still keeping her cool. She's calling it in. She's making the reports. She's setting it down. And she does find those, like those shoes, as you said, and leaves them out for the homeless guy because she knows he doesn't have any shoes on his feet. The other part of it, of course, is finding him break in a little bit later, and he's going through all the files in the file room. So where she eventually has to basically tase him, and then drags him into the holding cells. And he does not want to go into that holding cell. I believe that's also when she first tries to call something in, and she ends up picking up that singing on her radio.
She actually didn't taser him till after she had him in the cell. When he was trying to, after he was handcuffed, he was trying to like attack her, whatever.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, she batons him. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
She batons him out there. Either way, she takes him down both times.
Yeah.
But that part when she's in the cell, oh my God, that part to me where the cell door closes and she's stuck in the dark with him. And not only that, when you see she loses her flashlight and it's shining at her and she's like, all right, you're going to give it back. And then she realizes that he's not the one holding the light. I thought that was really well done. And I thought that was very creepy.
Right.
What about y'all? Did y'all consider the scene creepy? Do you feel like it definitely there was something off at that point?
First time I saw it, it was unnerving a little bit because then suddenly, like, they do a few jump scares with the people with those masks on.
Oh yeah,
whatnot. But this time around, it didn't faze me.
And something else she notices as she's coming back, because after all that ends, she notices the door is open. And so she leaves and locks the door behind her with him just kind of unconscious there on the ground after she tased him. And she notices that as she looks in, she's looking at these chairs and she's taken a few calls. Over this time, she keeps getting called by this woman who seems to be in danger on the cultist ranch. And you get to learn more and more about this group of cultists that's similar to the Manson family, and that they were definitely up to no good. Oh. All right. So, well, we've got Dustin from the Cryptophorus here. So was this your first time ever seeing Last Shift?
Well, so I have actually seen the cover for this movie with the dude with like the pentagram on his face many times. It's kind of everywhere in sort of places that have used DVDs, or especially like Family Video would have this movie for rent. And it's something that I've been in the same room as quite a few times. Like I've seen it around. I had just never actually sat down and watched it because it looks like kind of one of those. I'm trying to think of a kinder term for it, because it wasn't a bad movie. It was just kind of, it just felt like sort of a mass-produced indie movie kind of thing. Like, there would be like a bunch of releases from a bunch of like smaller name companies like every month, and it was just kind of had the feeling of like one of those. You know what I mean? Like there would be like 20 new DVDs every month at Family Video, and this would just be kind of like one of them. I think I've used the term basement movies for those before, but this wasn't a basement movie. This was really well done.
Yeah, that is a face that only a mother could love. Indeed.
Well, it makes the cover a lot more memorable. Like it really sticks out in my mind. So, but other than that, no, I saw it for the first time today, and I thought it was kind of good at making you not really sure what was happening throughout most of it. Like it had a really good, like eerie atmosphere to it. And I was kind of happy with it. So I didn't really understand a lot of things. Like there was, I think near the end, I had to pause and go do something, and I came back, and it was like she's standing there, and then all of a sudden she was on the ground bleeding, and it's like, wait, did she imagine that? What was happening?
Yeah, there's a lot in this movie that makes you wonder if there's something supernatural going on, or whether a lot of this is in her head. Though it does tend to lean a little bit more into the supernatural, and maybe a little bit in her head. But
I vote Supernatural because this movie was wild. Like, it wasn't like amazing, but it was fine. So if this was, I was thinking to myself, if this was on TV, if I still had TV and this was on TV, I wouldn't mind just stopping and watching it till it finished. Like, this is one of those kinds of movies which and I'm describing a phenomenon that doesn't necessarily exist anymore. But I think you get the idea.
oh yeah. Well,
Disturbing creatures just popping out of nowhere too. That was fun.
yeah, we were just talking about how she was taking a few more calls from this woman who's in trouble with the cult. And eventually the dispatcher does kind of fill her in a little bit more about the background of the case and the family. And she learns a little bit more for herself by looking up the case files. And that, and the finding out that, like I said, these are a Marilyn Manson style, Manson style cult. Marilyn Manson. Manson family style cult. And that they ended up, and later find out,
Maryland.
but later finds out that they not only were taken to the station, and her father not only died during during the attempt to rescue the girls from them, but that they actually hung themselves in the station. Now, she finds this out in little tidbits throughout the movie. And one of the things that happens right before things really go off for her is she discovers this room and these chairs are just stacked up, like, chair stacking, typical haunted house movie stuff. She knocks it over. It's like, okay, guys, I get it. You guys are just pranking the rookie. Now, I don't know about you, but at that point, I'm not sure I would feel like I was being pranked at that time.
It feels like she's definitely like a lot more like too alone for there to be somebody else there. Like, even if they're just hiding, like you'd hear them like making noise while they did that.
Well, then again, she does some stupid shit like go outside and leave the door unlocked several times.
In all fairness, the first time she didn't even go a couple inches from that door, and somehow that homeless guy snuck behind her. But
she got really freaked out really fast, and I don't really blame her though, because she was seeing some pretty crazy stuff. Like she was seeing like the hanged bodies with like their flesh warped, like on their faces, like all kinds of wild stuff.
And I do have to say that when that character at the end of the hall was being dragged down the hall and then slowly it raised up, and started to come towards her. The first time I saw that felt creepy, but this time around it didn't like creep me out as much, because I expected it, but it still had a creep factor.
And there are a couple of people that she meets along the way. One of them, of course, is a streetwalker who happened to just sit there and just be smoking a cigarette outside. And she's like, comes out, you can't be smoking it here. She says, come on, give me a little bit of time to finish this off. It's not the best neighborhood. And I'm looking around, I was like, yeah, no, definitely not the best neighborhood in the world. This place probably could still use a police station. But she actually does talk a little bit about the holding cells and how when she was stuck back there, she was so freaked out because she was there when they hung themselves and had told about that story where they got hung next door, and how after that things just strange stuff kept happening. And that's later confirmed when she asks the dispatch, like, yeah, there's a lot of strange things going on, and that not only are there strange things, but the strange things happening at night is part of the reason why they're moving in the first place. And that's some creepy stuff. I don't know about y'all, but if I had all that stuff going on every night, I don't think I'd want to stay there either.
Nope.
No, probably not. Although then again, in my apartment, I get quite a few of my own share of like weird bumps in the night lately. So
Hey, old buildings have ghosts in them, one way or the other.
it reminds me of there's a Magic card called Unruly Mob, and every time they print a version of like the horror themed set, like the Gothic horror set, they reprint it in there. And the Unruly Mob has different flavor text each time. And the most recent time they printed it, it's like, we've faced, killer angels, horrors from beyond the moon. Now some big werewolves think they can scare us. Let them try. And it's kind of, for me, and like weird noises at night, it's kind of like that. You think you can scare me with that? Go ahead, try it. So, but there were some good creepy bumps in this. Like there was, I don't remember exactly what point in the movie it was, but through my sound system, I actually heard something come through in stereo, like in the surround behind me, and I actually kind of like I'm used to it enough that I don't normally do that with the speaker array, but it was kind of an impressive, noteworthy thing for this movie to pull off.
Oh yeah, the way that they did this movie, I definitely want to talk a lot about that during the production, because to me there were some very good decisions made, and according to what I've heard, this was actually a fairly low budget film, which makes it even more impressive that they got done what they got done. There was also an officer that supposedly that comes by and says that he was sent over there to check on her, but by whom is kind of in question. He seems friendly, almost hitting on her. Talks about the night that he and her father did the raid on the ranch, and had talked about how 2 officers died trying to get them out, and one of them was her father. But what we find out shortly after the conversation, when he turns around, he must have been the other officer that died, as there's a big old hole in the back of his head.
Yep, it's kind of like that moment in Sixth Sense where Cole is just gone to the bathroom, and he turns around, and there's this kid that turns around, and you can see the back of his head is like mashed in as he's saying, "Let's go find the gun in my dad's closet."
So,
I really got to get off my butt and see The Sixth Sense at some point soon. Like I've somehow avoided it for decades.
Yeah, it's a good movie to watch at least once, I think, and it has some pretty good scary moments in it. I mean, pretty cool ghost encounters.
To be fair, I had the twist spoiled for me in like 2004, and so it's just been kind of like, do I really need to sit down and see that? Because I know what happened, but the rest of it is probably important too.
I think that most Shyamalan movies are worth watching at least twice. Once without knowing the twist, and once with knowing the twist. You've already just had one watch done, so you see, with just knowing the twist, so all you have to do is just watch it that second time for the first time.
Right? I did love Unbreakable.
But this is something I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to have y'all's thoughts on this. So, of course, I remember I was talking about the sergeant acting strange at the beginning, which is another reason why I think it's not just really her. One, he was acting strange back there at the holding cells, where we know crap went down. But also, that line telling her to turn around. And after I watched it this time, I was thinking to myself, maybe when he was asking her to turn around, he wanted to make sure that she wasn't dead, and he wasn't talking to a ghost. What do y'all think?
I think, yes, that he was checking to make sure that she wasn't a spirit.
That would make sense, yeah.
I mean, at first I thought that he was checking out her ass, and whatnot.
Can't it be both?
It's funny. I didn't put that together, why he had her turn around, until you just said that. I went, oh, that makes sense. But yeah, I think whatever was in the back in that police station, because there was the hazmat people were coming, right?
Yep.
And so I think there was something in there that makes you hallucinate and stuff, and that's why he was kind of like freaked out in the beginning. And he just told her not to go back, but he didn't warn her other than that. And even when she called him and said, I don't think I can handle this, he still doesn't like divulge the information. So I think what ultimately happened is a lot of his fault, because he didn't tell her, he didn't warn her or anything. So it just the whole thing. I don't think it was. I think it was partial supernatural, but I think it was partially in her mind too. I don't think it was all one thing. It was a combination of the two things. So that's just what I gathered from it.
And I do think that they start pulling all the stops as soon as she totally figures out the mystery of what went on. That's when the horror section pulls out all the stops. That's when you start seeing more of the bodies hanging, more of the people. She ends up going in, and then suddenly the video starts playing about the cultist leader's interrogation, where he's talking about how they're going to come back, and then they're going to come back for them or get them, and that innocent blood will be spilt on the cursed ground and bring Malum back, which is of course the demon that they worship. And then, of course, you have a lot of other things, like her going back to the cell and the homeless guy actually saying something like, "Please let me out." And then behind him, you see all the people hanging behind with the heads just like shaking. I understand why he was freaking out. But the other part that was disturbing was when they finally, because she got the full name and what was going on with her, that the woman she'd been talking with on the 911, and they find out that this person is actually somebody that was murdered by the cultists back when the whole thing happened and beaten to death with a baseball.
Yeah, she was the last victim found, they said.
And as soon as she confronts her about that, she lets out this creepy laugh. And you look down, and it's the kind of like ghost and battered body of the woman coming after her. I consider that scene quite creepy. Of course, if you look earlier at an earlier scene, you can see that she's actually stalking the main character from behind. Or you see the woman in her underwear coming after her.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. I actually didn't realize it was her, but yeah.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, I've seen this film like 5 times now, so...
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen any behind the scenes, and I've only seen the one, so...
But definitely, to me, these were little creepy moments. There was also a scene she comes in, and the problem is I cannot remember the order of all these scenes, where she comes into the room, and you can see all the cultist women sitting in a circle, and they're singing, and you can see their faces in the reflection, but then you can see that the real girls have the bags that are kind of glued to their heads that they put on, making these kind of evil death masks on the other side.
Well, yeah, and there's also a moment where she finds herself watching a video or what looks like a projection of these 3 with the John Payman character, and he ends up putting the bags on their head, and then it's like his image comes to life, and they end up being in the room with her.
Yeah, it's sort of like a combination between Manson and stuff like either Jonestown or Waco or some of those that kind of did the mass suicide.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that Manson was not. He was not suicidal. Any thoughts about those kind of creepy scenes?
I thought they all worked pretty well, and just kind of building the mood. And there were, if not for stuff like that, they were kind of long stretches where it doesn't necessarily feel like something happens. So it was good to have those in there.
Yeah. That's one of the things pacing wise that I find is interesting about this film, is though there are little spaces where there's not much going on, but a lot of times the silence in the film speaks volumes and builds the tension a lot more, which to me is very different from a film like Paranormal Activity, where I'm just sitting there watching nothing for like 2/3 of the film and looking for all the little things there. I did not feel bored at all when I watched this film, which was which is very rare for me.
I didn't feel bored at all. It definitely kept your attention.
Yeah, and I wasn't bored really either, although it is very hard to keep my attention just in general sometimes. So, but no, it's good.
So you get more call from her mother talking about her father's death, and again trying to fill in a lot of the blanks. But she also gets a call from her father as well, telling her that because she's ready to get the heck out of there. And she's running and she's trying to get out. But the phone rings and then drags her back in, which unfortunately, because I'm going to spend the rest of my shift out in my cop car, which I would have done at that point myself. I can watch the station just fine from the cop car. But she ends up being trapped in after that. But she does
She does go out, but then she heard the phone rings and she at first she was gonna ignore it, and then she decided to go back in, and that's when she ended up getting trapped in afterwards, because she had actually did get out and almost to her squad car.
And if you notice when the phone rings the last time, it's not just a typical ring. That phone is violently ringing.
The phone's vibrating.
Yeah, it's shaking off the table.
Taking the screen, yeah, it was like, damn.
But all throughout this, she's constantly hearing the song in the background, seeing these guys dropping out of the thing. She sees the homeless man wandering down the hall. She goes to arrest him again, and she sees this gaunt, like she just sees this face of this curled back in horror as it falls, and then goes to find him in the cell, having hung himself.
Yeah, that face, seen it the second time, it looks fake as fuck. But
yeah, it's probably one of the worst effects of the movie. But the first time you see it, I think it's effective.
Yeah, it works for your first time, I think. So.
But
especially when it pops up on you like as a surprise, it's like but if you're ready for it, it's like ew.
Yeah, I think that's why when you're used to it, then that's where you can see it. But when you see it the first time, you're not expecting it. You're like, oh. But her father has two conversations with her on the phone. The first time, he's basically saying, "Why are you running away? You're a police officer. You shouldn't be running away." But the second time, he's letting her know that they're starting to come after her. And they're trying to invade the station. Now, there's another character that pops in between, before the end, which is a surviving member, supposedly. Again, you can't exactly fully trust everything that she sees, because our main character is not the best or most consistent storyteller.
No.
She even says that this might be a figment of my imagination and everything, and then the woman supposedly says, puts the gun on her and says, well, let's pull the trigger and find out,
Because if you look at it, all of the original members of the family had people watching them at all times, and they were kind of scattered. So it's interesting that this one managed to somehow get back in, but was apparently upset that she was not there, that she had not been picked to be with them that night when they were arrested. and that she planned to actually complete the ritual of spilling innocent blood and then join them. But ends up killing herself instead.
I realized
See,
that. I
that
don't
part
think
I
he
didn't
spilled
catch
innocent
on.
blood.
That part I did.
Well, that's the thing is, I must have zoned out during that part because I did not remember it. But I went back through and I found it, and I was like, oh. But yeah, I guess some people, they just get FOMO, even cultist styles. But yeah, the last part of that is her basically getting into a gunfight with the cultists, in quotation marks. And she's doing pretty good. She definitely knows how to use her sidearm. Because she is downing them left and right.
Well, yeah, it almost felt like she was told to act like this is like your first training on using your gun moment. You know, the training that cops go through where they end up having to like shoot targets.
And of course, when she gets to the end and to the exit, one of them starts talking about, the time is near, and talking about the prophecy, and then she ends up getting shot in the back after she holds the gun to them and just shoots the guy. She ends up getting shot in the back, and she looks around, and it's actually her sergeant. That's when she realizes that it's 4:00 in the morning. That's the last part. That is the end of her shift, and the cleaning people have arrived. Unfortunately, she ended up killing all of them.
I think you forgot to mention that her a couple times her father called her too.
Oh, I had talked about the father calling.
Okay, I missed it.
But
yeah,
he's the one who told her that they were on their way. But as she starts to fade out, she starts singing that song, that creepy song, as the whole thing fades.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am going to tell you.
I think her realizing that she shot. The fact that she realized that she shot the men in those hazmat suits, that kind of cracked her.
So what I want to do on this section, as we've at the end of the plot, is I want to do something a little different. I'm going to start us out by just telling y'all what I thought of the plot structure and stuff, but then also what I think happened. And then I'd like y'all to also follow along and tell me what y'all thought of how the plot was structured, and then what y'all think actually happened. So for me, I really liked how the plot was done. It definitely kept me going. It kept me on edge. I didn't feel like the pacing slowed all that much, because even in the slow parts, the creepy factor kept it there. Having those little lulls actually, I think, increased the tension. So I was very pleased with this, especially when I've been through a lot of films where they have lulls and it's not creepy at all, and I start to get sleepy. But this is my theory on what happened. I believe that, yes, they did do some sort of demonic ritual there when they died and cursed the police station. And in order to bring Malum back, according to a lot of the stuff you pick up throughout the movie, innocent blood must be spilt on cursed ground. So their goal was on a year from when they were killed, which was the last shift, was a year to the day of when they all killed themselves. They spent most of the night messing with her head until she saw what they wanted her to see, so that she could complete the ritual that they could not, and spill the innocent blood on hallowed ground. Now, one other little tidbit that might be interesting to know is that behind the scenes, and they actually explain this more in Malum, that the homeless man actually has a reason for looking for the files, because he had somebody that he knew that was actually involved I think it was his daughter that was actually involved in the whole crime act, and he was trying to find information out before the station closed. That's not very well explained here, but is definitely explained in the remake. But,
yeah, I was supposed to say, how the heck did you know that? Because like they don't have to tell you anything about who the guy is.
There's a remake?
Yep, called Malum. Much gorier. But in my opinion, not as scary.
I'm downloading it right now. So
Jacob needs to see it because he said at the beginning there wasn't enough gore in the movie.
The hell you say?
but that's my take on it. That's what I figure the plot is about. That yes, the ghosts are real. That they were kind of having her see things, but that she needed to be broken down enough mentally to have them see what they wanted her to see, so that they could complete the ritual there. And that is my take. So why don't we move over to Dave? First off, did you feel like the plot was handled effectively?
I do think that the plot, the main plot points were handled effectively for the budget that they had. And I think that they definitely had some creep moments that they brought to the table. Like, as far as production goes, I absolutely love that part where where she goes into the room and there's these 4 TVs on either corner, and you see the 3 followers and the leader, and they each like kind of tell their story, and then it's like you're actually there, like in the room with them while they're telling their story, and then the camera like pinwheels like all this video camera movement, and it looks like some of the images are transparent, and then you start seeing like different things happening, and I wish I knew how the fuck they did that, because I would do that. I would try to imitate that.
So what is your theory of what went down?
Well, I think that you hit it on the nose. I just did, maybe I didn't see the part where, you know,
and
where the last surviving.
Oh, don't get it twisted. They leave this thing way open ended. It's just that's just my take on what I got from the information.
I think you've got it on the nose. I mean, they needed to break her down to get her to a moment of like where her spirit would be open, so that they could just use her to get to their final goal. Because basically these spirits were trapped in limbo, because in a sense. Because they weren't able to finish their ceremony, so they needed someone to cross over to do what they needed to do. So,
all right. Well, what about you, Jake? Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about for the plot?
No, I think it's mostly been covered.
And what is your theory on what happened?
You mean besides spooky shit makes person go crazy? I think
do you think that the ghosts were real, or do you think it's all hallucination? What do you think?
I mean, I think your theory makes perfect sense. I had honestly not put a huge amount of thought into it. I know it was the anniversary of all this stuff going down, and it's pretty clear that there was, that they wanted something out of her. I felt they were targeting her as much as anything because her father was part of that raid and everything. But your explanation, I think, makes more sense than anything I thought of. So we'll go with that.
What about you, Kroll?
I mean, yeah, your explanation was pretty close to mine. So, yeah, to my thoughts.
And Dustin?
I mean, you've seen this a bunch of times, so you've had a lot of time to analyze it. So I think the theory you came up with is probably the best. I do want to add, I think like all the ghosts and stuff were real. So it kind of, I guess, kind of like a hybrid of, oh, they're just hallucinations. Like, no, I think they were actually there, and they were just being made visible to her. Like, so I think it was like part in her head and part not. Or just like using the ghosts to get into her head and make her start seeing things after a point.
Now, do y'all think the Sarge was in on it?
Possibly.
No, I think he was a victim too, but I think he's just negligent on not telling her. Maybe he was just afraid that people think he was crazy or something, or what. Excuse me. I'm not sure exactly why he didn't want her or anything, but yeah, I don't think he was in on it. I think he was a victim. Just luckily for him, it never drove him completely batshit crazy like it did her.
I think there is reason to doubt his innocence. I mean, at the beginning, he is introduced by yelling at someone like off screen, and I didn't catch it. I don't know if y'all caught exactly who he was talking to. It could have been that he was under orders to basically sacrifice the new recruit. Orders from who knows, but
that makes sense because he turned around because he's like, first question he asked her was how long you been there, so like that does make a lot of sense right there.
Yeah,
I do think that he was definitely seeing the things that were going on.
Yeah, and when he shows up at the end, he looks genuinely upset. Like he doesn't look like he's like, oh, okay, good. We're good now, or whatever. Like how you'd expect. Like if and given his previous dickish behavior, he actually seems, even if he was just being a dick, he does seem genuinely upset to see what went down. And not even just her. Like, he gets on the radio and says, "Officer down." Like, if he was going to throw her under the bus, I'm not sure that's the phrase he would have used. So I think it's, I have a feeling like he kind of knew something was up, but that he was, like, his hand was forced. That was my read on that, I guess.
All right. Well, let's move on to production. I think to me, I know that one of the things that the director had talked about a lot is that they had to do a lot with very little funding. That this one was actually not like a micro budget film like we're used to, but definitely a low budget film. And he had complained a lot that he didn't have enough money to do what he really wanted to do, which is why he made Malum. Which it still irks me that they decided to remake a movie so close to the time that they made the original. But in my opinion, a lot of the things that they did to save money on this actually made it creepier to me. From the makeup choices to the design to the sound. My goodness, the sound design on this was excellent. All the well-placed noises made that police station extremely creepy. But what do y'all think of the production?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the movie looks pretty good in almost every place. I mean, only now, after you guys mentioned that, it looked bad. Am I remembering it in my mind? And it's like, yeah, I guess that was sort of But for the most part, I thought it was all pretty convincing, pretty well done. I mean, it didn't seem like an expensive movie just because of, oh, it's mostly just this one actor, it's mostly just this location, it's mostly in the dark. Like, I think that probably shaved a lot off the budget, just because, you don't need all that much. And sometimes, like, having to use more atmosphere than, like, stuff you can show definitely works better. I mean, that's a well-known, like, thing in filmmaking. So, I mean, I think you're right on that. And also, kind of wondering, like, what would have been so different with, like, a remake so soon after, too? Because it's, like, felt like you did fine before, just, who really heard of this? It was 2014.
Well, the remake basically takes it to the point that I actually made, that I felt like the plot was to the end, and makes it very blunt and very much leans on the cult and a lot more gore in it. The gore effects were really good in the remake, but to me there was something missing. I don't know, it just didn't come across as scary to me, but and a lot more cynical, because the way that they treat the officer in that one is they have it to where everybody hates her. Like, all the police hate her. And I'm not going to go too far in, because I know Dave might be watching it soon. But yeah, there were things about the remake that did bother me. I still liked it, but I feel like this one made better choices. Anybody else as far as production, about what they thought? I mean, another effect I could think of that I really liked. First off, I love that mirror scene. I thought that effect was amazing, where you had the reflection on one side, and then you had the girls with the death masks on the other side looking over, or that body that's dragged out and then kind of gets held up like a marionette and then hung. Things like that were just really neat to watch in this film.
I would say.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of the overall general effects, what am I saying? Production. Overall, I thought they did a really good job. Like I said, the film does a great job establishing atmosphere, and so it does make very effective use of setting and sound and that sort of thing. But yeah.
And you, Dave?
As far as
I saw you were starting to say something. I didn't know if you got cut off.
I forgot.
Well,
It's okay.
I guess we'll move into the music. I will say this: the Cultist song was suitably creepy. There is something about creepy cults.
It almost.
Go ahead, Dave.
It almost sounds similar to as I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way.
Yeah, I think I got a little bit of that vibe too. But yeah, it was a nice tune.
Yeah, I think that's probably intentional.
The very end of the credits, I think that song they have playing there, that was a great recording to end it on.
And they wanted to make it very Manson-esque, very Jim Jones-esque, and I think that really came through as that. I mean, because I don't know if y'all have listened to any of Manson's recordings.
I have not.
I haven't, but there is in the Chainsaw Massacre game, one of the new characters, her backstory is that she spent time with the Manson family, and she just kind of randomly sings at different intervals. Like she sings stuff to herself, and she's singing all Manson songs. So I know a few lyrics from Manson songs just off of that.
otherwise, I don't recall having a lot of a soundtrack other than, a sound here or a placement there that just added. But most of it was creative sound placement to make the creepiness go up. But again, I don't know if y'all had any memorable like soundtrack moments.
I really liked the music over the credits. I mean, like the weird like dirge was cool, but the kind of like softer song was nice too, and it was reminiscent of like a gospel song. I know I keep going back to video game references, but I used to play Far Cry 5 a lot, and the theme of that was around like a doomsday cult, and they wrote quite a lot of like original like cult songs for like that group in the game that you could hear like on the in-game radio. And it reminded me a lot of those, just the kind of eerie feel to it.
Actually, interesting fact on the radio there, I actually bought that game only because a friend of mine, his band actually had a song on the radio playing for Far Cry 5. And I was like, okay, I've got to buy it for this. And for the most part, I'll admit, that game, they did a great job with the cult until the ending, which I will not ruin. But the ending to me ruined the game. But otherwise, it was a very fun game.
I mean, I loved it. I played through the whole thing twice, back when I could do stuff like that. For me, like the way it ended, like was certainly a surprise. I'm not going to spoil it either, but it went right into like a different version of the cult song "We Will Rise," and it was the way it was sung, like in the context of what happened to that ending, was just one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced. It's like, wow, this is pretty great. I mean, I have that soundtrack for that reason. It's a good soundtrack.
Like I say, despite my feelings about the ending, I would definitely recommend that game, especially if you like creepy cult stuff. It definitely goes bar none into that. And
on Xbox Game Pass now too.
And you can get like a River City Rebel song. You can hear that on the radio if you listen long enough.
For the season, there's a small mission. I don't remember what part of the map it's in. It's kind of hidden away in some part of the map. There's a house that's set up like, haunted house, opens whenever. And
I
so
love that one.
Yeah, judging from the lore that you can get like around it, it's like this is just like the local haunted house that somebody sets up every year. And when the stuff that happens in the game happens, apparently they set it back up, but they made stuff real. Like there are real bodies in there now. And as you're walking through it, like stuff's popping out at you. You get to the attic, and there's a bunch of you hear like a noise. You open the door. There's a bunch of like cameras that have been watching you the whole time. And it's very clear somebody was just there and had just like jumped out the window, and you can't find any trace of anybody.
Oh, that was a great little piece in there.
There are so many cool things in that game. Like, wow, I think there's even like a Bigfoot you can track down at some point. It's nuts. It's so good.
So I guess with that, let's go ahead into favorites. So I'm going to do this into two. Favorite scene and scene that came closest to creeping you out. I know some of y'all are immune, but we'll just go with closest to because of that. If you are actually creeped out at a time, of course, use that, but So we'll start with Dave. What was your favorite scene?
I think I've already mentioned it. The part with the TVs and the that's my favorite scene. It's just they do so much pinwheeling with the camera movement. It's actually something that I think I remembered from the film. I haven't seen something quite as extensive as that. So, and I do like the part where the character like gets dragged and it kind of stands up like a marionette and starts walking. So those are my two.
So what scene came closest to creeping you out? Like I say, I know you're not creeped
The
out by
first
it all,
time?
but yeah, any time that you feel like there was a scene that you felt like was at least creepy-ish.
The marionette scene, the first time that I saw it, it creeped me out. Second time, not so much, but the first time, certainly did.
Hey, if anything, the second time it's still like, it's a pretty cool effect. What about you,
Yeah.
Jake? What was your favorite scene?
That's kind of hard to say. Partly because favorite is an odd term to use with a movie like this, but I kind of like the scene where the young cop comes in and talks to her and, kind of puts her at ease. But then he turns around and you see it holding his head, and suddenly, she's right back to where she was. It's like, oh, fuck. I don't know. That might be it.
Well, what about a scene that creeped you out?
Some of the scenes that, and again, it's really hard to pinpoint one. Like I said, when the film's not trying to shock you with horrible imagery or whatever, and it's relying more on sound and lighting, weird camera angles, creepy songs, that sort of thing. There were some of those scenes where, again, you feel that kind of creeping dread. And I don't know that I could pick a specific one and say that was the moment. But, like, there are a few of those. As far as ones that shocked me or really got my attention in a good way, the aforementioned scene where the dude turns around and you realize, nah, he's dead. That was a good one. The scene where they show the interviewing of the captives and the youngest one, the one who's clearly batshit, is just going around, just saying her piece. And then suddenly out of nowhere, she starts slamming her face on the table.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously, I didn't like seeing after a couple of moments, but just the suddenness of that out of nowhere, just like, there were a couple of moments like that where it was like, okay, that was pretty cool. And then, of course, the big reveal at the end. I'm not sure. We'll put that as a favorite, I guess you could say. The big reveal at the end where Cohen shows up just too late. And you go from seeing this what the hell to what apparently is reality. And, yeah, it was interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
So, Dustin, a favorite scene and scene that came closest to creeping you out?
I think the thing where the cop just comes and like talks to her and then just like whooshes out of there. And it's like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. That was kind of my all right moment. And when she just suddenly sees like the hanged ghost bodies in that room, like I enjoyed those the most, and I think that's probably what got me the most. So
And you, Kroll.
I'd say I don't know. There was a lot of great scenes in the movie. Now when she was pulling him into the cell, I was thinking the door's gonna get shut. So I actually called that. I knew that was going to happen. I didn't know anything else that was going to happen in the scene, but I knew that was going to happen. So it wasn't surprising at all. Like Jake said, the scene with the guy that came to check on her, and then you find out he's dead. You know, that's kind of a cool scene. I don't know. I think when she goes back and goes through the you know, and she finds the picture of her dad and her, and then going through that bathroom, and you know, that whole scene is probably uh, still a really freaky, messed up scene. I think I don't think it was the homeless dude that did it. I think it was more it was the cops or something else that had done it. But yeah, the as far as the scene that creeped me out or almost creeped me out is another probably favorite scene too is near the end when the body being dragged on the floor, and you know, and it gets up and slowly gets up and then comes after her. Um, that was that was kind of creepy. Didn't really creep me out too much, but it was definitely had a creep factor in it. But it was also really cool special effects, I think. So again, it was kind of a thing where it's one of my favorite scenes and also one of the creepiest scenes. And there was a few of them that were you know on the edge of creepy. I would say, but that was probably the creepiest in my opinion.
Yep, I think that's one of the powers of this movie is it's actually a pretty good one to watch with the lights out, especially if you've got like a place that has like creaks and sounds that kind of go in the night. Um, well,
Yeah.
my favorite scene is, of course, the mirror scene. I don't know why, but I always like that effect. But my the creepiest scene for me was the one where she gets locked in the cell with the guy, and you can see that light is shining, and you realize that's not the homeless man using the light. I don't know why, but that just creeps me out. Not as much as it did the first time, but definitely it still does. Well, that's it for my part of this. So I'll hand this over to Dave.
Alrighty. So, why don't we tell the audience a little bit about ourselves and what we do? So, heading over to you, Carl. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, I'm Ron, nicknamed Kroll. What I do, it's a big list to what it was when I first came on this show. I used to just be a disabled person that liked movies and stuff. Now I'm an actor, a writer, soon to be a published writer as well as well. I mean, I'm published on a blog, but I'll be published on Amazon soon. Um, like I said, I run a blog. I'm on all over social media, making posts and videos. I have a YouTube channel, Kroll 1973. If anyone wants to check it out, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Reach out if you want my handles. Kroll's World is TikTok and Instagram, so that's the easy one to remember. Also LinkedIn. So yeah, I market different products, but mostly what I focus on is making money online. So you know, if anyone's interested, reach out. If not, then cool. But yeah, I absolutely love it. It's fun, and yeah, just adding things to my bucket list. You know, since I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, so I got to do a scene in some scenes with Septum's short movie, and I really appreciate doing that and him allowing me to be in it because it was fun, and it gave me a dream come true. And I thought the script was really funny, and you know, it was enjoyable, and I can't wait to watch it. But yeah, it was fun. It was very fun to do, and that's a check off my bucket list. Not that I'm done acting. Any other chance I have, like when Dave finally shoots his, I'll be happy to be in that, and any others that come down the pipeline. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Not as short as I would
Well,
like.
your
it
part
to
is
be.
coming up, so we'll have. Your part is coming up, so we'll have to get you your costume and stuff. So, heading over to you, Dustin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and what you do?
Well, I collect horror movie stuff here in Milwaukee. I have a YouTube channel, The Crypt of Horrors, which I'm working on making stuff for. I also have a Instagram, The Crypt of Horrors, as well. We're trying to see if I can shorten everything into Cryptaxis, since it's just easier to say. And I'm on Twitter all the time as Cryptaxis, so you can come see my movie opinions there. I'm Cryptaxis on Letterboxd as well, where I'm trying to be more active and post down the stuff I watch, because I see a lot of stuff. So it's a fun time. So yeah.
Alrighty. Heading over to Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Kotobukijake. I'm the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, where we do all kinds of fun stuff, and we've got an upcoming discussion on the classic anime series Ghost Stories.
Oh, my.
That'll be coming up soon. And, we're kind of doing a hiatus from other stuff at the moment because of all the filming going on. But, we're doing stuff. I keep pretty busy with my day job. And actually, in the process, I just transferred locations. So that's been a fun adjustment. And, just I like to try to keep my film watching somewhat active, so I do like to make a little time each week to join these fine folks, and look forward to hopefully getting some films that are a little more my speed soon, but October, you expect this kind of thing. But yeah, that's gonna do for me for now. It's yeah.
Well, didn't you just have Sappy September?
Didn't I do what?
Didn't you just have Sappy September?
Sappy September?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm joking. I'm
documentaries.
just joking around. You said movies more your speed, so just joking.
He.
Well, we did do Black Swan.
There you go. That counts.
Yeah,
Romance.
pure Hallmark, that one.
Sure. But let's go over to Brandon, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do? You've been a busy beaver.
You wouldn't know it if you looked at my channel, but I do have a channel called SeptumSin versus the World. We love physical media, and we did have a brief comeback, but things have just been very busy, and I am pouring everything into helping Dave get his film off the ground and finishing editing my film. I do have a lot going on. It's just all behind the scenes. I mean, I finished, Amityville Webcam is now in post-production. I've got a few things, a few people I might try and hit up to do little scenes here and there, but otherwise filming is done entirely. And I'm helping Dave with his Tales of the Forgotten movie, which is pretty cool. I actually had my acting and directing debut with Amityville Apocalypse. I have 2 shorts that I wrote and directed in that, which is kind of fun. And I have a film coming out, I want to say in early November, called the the Anhedenia Project, which is a documentary that I did about my experience with the films of Evan Jacobs. That is a feature-length film, so technically it's my first ever directed feature-length film, and will be available in the near future on Anhedenia Films Unlimited, or you can buy it video on demand in the near future as well. The trailer is up on my channel, and it is also up on the Anhedenia Films channel. So, something fun, and I'm glad to see it. So technically, if I ever get the Amityville webcam finally edited and published, it'll be my second film. But still, some pretty cool stuff coming up. Oh, and technically, next week is we're still continuing those films that had unnerved us or scared us at one point in time. But I figure Dustin would be best to introduce the film for next week because it's his pick.
Oh, sure, Dustin. You know which movie we're doing next week? Dustin?
Wow.
Which one is it again? If you would look at the chat.
Jaws 2.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, right. Yeah, it's we watch a lot of movies. It was really hard to remember. Anyway, so Jaws 2 actually scared me pretty good. I saw it very young, like maybe too young. I remember seeing it on the Disney Channel somehow. I don't know what in the world was going on with the very early 90s.
You know,
why that would
for
show up.
kids.
It might have been USA or TNT, but for some reason I can remember a Disney Channel logo in the corner, and I don't know why.
Well, actually, in the early days, Disney Channel did show some kind of sketchy stuff. But that would have been like in early 90s.
I am talking like 91, 92. Yes, yeah. That is what I had in mind. And it scared me out of taking baths for a while. Like I learned to take showers eventually, but I was afraid of being submerged in water for a long time. And it's just kind of funny to me because normally that was everybody's experience with the first Jaws. But I didn't see that for quite a while until after I saw Jaws 2. So for me, Jaws 2 worked just as well as Jaws. And I think to this day, I'm a little too forgiving on the Jaws sequels because people are like, oh, they're terrible. And it's like, they're not as bad as you say.
I don't remember 1 and 2 that much. I just remember the horrific 3. And was horrible.
See, terrible and enjoyable. Terrible and enjoyable are different things, in my opinion. You can enjoy a bad film.
That's good. I enjoy it.
Because I love 3 and I love Jaws, the Revenge or Vengeance. Or whatever.
Did you see 3 in the theaters like I did?
Oh, no.
It probably made it better having the actual 3D turned on.
I wanted to see Jaws in the pool. I've always wanted to do that experience where they broadcast it on the screen where you all are in a pool of water. I think that just is such a cool idea.
No, thank you. But one thing I'd say, if you have a way to find it, check out the Jaws 2 novelization, which is fairly different from the film, and actually makes the story make more sense. Like it does something pretty cool with the stuff from like the shark's POV.
Yeah, I really hope that we discuss Santa Jaws in December. I don't know why, but I just want to.
I thought we already did that. That movie was pretty great.
No, we put it up, but it was never chosen.
We have not.
Oh. So yeah, Jaws 2 next week. Read the book if you can. All right.
Alrighty. My name is David Streggy, and I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous, frightening journey we've been having, reliving our nightmarish films. But hopefully we didn't scare you too bad, but I do moonlight on a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where Kroll and myself and my fiance and Forrest all gather together on Sundays, and we shoot the crap out of also various different films from time to time. And I believe this Sunday we are going to be discussing The Purge.
Woo.
This coming Sunday, as a as my choice to sort of kick off the Halloween season, even though we talked about The Haunting this last Sunday, the remake, and so on and so forth. So definitely enjoying some of that. But as Brandon said, we've actually been somewhat kicking ass and getting some of the stuff done on Tales of the Forgotten. I actually had some ideas still kicking around, and am putting together several projects at this moment. A friend of mine actually shot a bunch of footage, and I'm putting it together, and it's going to be called the found footage of a serial killer. That's something that's going to be part of the second feature. As well, I started filming something on a short film called Killer Pocket Pussy. Going to be doing a few close-up shots with a talking pocket pussy, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be coming. And Kyle Rappaport ended up shooting some scenery for me on a part that'll kick off the second feature. So this turned into a longer project than I expected, but it's looking like I'm going to see a finish line, at least on the first film. We're going to continue editing next week, Monday, and hope that we get more done. So other than that, hopefully everyone out there has enjoyed our discussion on Last Shift. Like, share, and subscribe. Let us know down in the comments what you thought of the film. But don't take our word for it. Go out and see it for yourself. On that note, everyone say good night.
Good night.
Not at all.